Oh man. There'll be lots of people downvoting this video and hating on me hard. Let's first start off with generalizations exist because people have generalized things. Now we all kind of know what a Leica shooter looks like, right? What does a Leica shooter look like? Well, we can't make generalizations. They don't have like gigantic long waxed mustaches and they're not into steampunk. Although it is yeah, I'd actually own a Leica. Well, it'd be a monochrome Leica, but the lenses are too overpriced, and the customer service really sucks, and Leica will probably be bankrupt soon. I mean, the company was up for sale a few years ago. Sony. I was reminded of a stereotype on Sony, and of course we all know criminals are stupid, because if criminals were smart, there's some smart criminals. Criminals were smart, they wouldn't do criminal things, but there was a security camera video recently released of the camera store up in Canada, and some dude sitting there fondling a Sony, and he starts creeping his way towards the creeping his way towards the entrance, and then I guess some of the people there realize he's gonna dash, and I think he maced some employee with like bear spray, which is basically like tear gas. You would think that if a criminal had like 5 brain cells, he would be like, can I handle that Hasselblad, or can I handle the GFX Fujifilm? Worth a lot more money. Or if you wanted something that can move really fast, it's like, can you give me that D850? What about a Nikon D5? Because that's worth a lot of money. But no, it had to be a Sony. And I bet too, and some criminals are actually given a shopping list of what to steal. It's like, this is the stuff that's hot. We can move this stuff just like that. And he probably was working off the list of what would move the fastest, so he could get a few bucks, so he could buy some drugs, or, But that mentality, even though I'm absolutely no fan of Ken Rockwell, I remember in some article somebody pointed me to once, he said, oh man, Sony haters are going to hate me for this video. He said that he said that Sony shooters are people that like to push buttons. I've tended to typify them as gadget sluts, button sniffers. I use the say button sniffers or gadget sluts. There is an ethos that revolves around the company, and they've always had the exact same issue. And that people don't understand, people that get into Sony, and I'm going to make a generalization here that is generally accurate. So you can't generalize, it's like, why can't I? Of course I could generalize. Like if somebody were walking in the mall, and they had like a switchblade in their hand, and a neon green thong shoved up their butt, and nothing else, it'd be like, that dude is a wackadoodle. So I can't generalize. People don't realize that Sony has had this nasty ethos ever since the days of Walkman. And I remember back in the days of Walkmans, cassette players. You're not old enough to remember cassette players. That everybody wanted a Sony Walkman. That's all anybody talked about. But Toshiba is kind of like the Fujifilm back in the day, anyway, of really awesome cassette players. I don't remember what the model number was, but it was the most beautiful piece of Japanese precision. It was just, I wished I had it today. I would like dust it and keep it in a glass box. It's like the epitome of Japanese pride. I mean, it was far slimmer, far better made, mostly metal, incredibly reliable. It had like about 1 billion moving parts in it, but they never broke. They were famous for not breaking. It was like a Rolex of cassette players. But nobody wanted a effing Toshiba cassette player. The Toshiba's version of a Walkman. Had a radio on it, AM and FM. Man, it was the tits. Unbelievable. But everybody wanted that plastic piece of shit Walkman. Sony is famous for producing something and not having parts for it. Like, well, you got a problem with it, we're obsoleted that. We're gonna come out with a new model in a few months from now. They've had the exact same working corporate ethos now for all these many decades. The same thing Sony did with the Walkman is the same thing they're doing with their cameras. And Sony's not a camera company. They're a consumer electronics company. We're talking about the same people that produce game stations or Sony PlayStations. I said Game Boys almost for a second there. Sony PlayStations and other sort of zit-faced, basement-dwelling, troglodytic toys. And I've owned a few of them over the decades, but I mean, I always knew what was better. I mean, it was usually Toshiba or Panasonic. Um, just not made well, just not attention to detail. Sony just does not get photographers. I mean, they got a sensor division. Somewhere along the line, Sony told themselves, like, we don't make lenses. We're not in photography. They do have a professional video sector. It's like, now that we've got this multi-billion-dollar sensor division, which they spun off because Sony almost went bankrupt in 2014. Now that we got this sensor division, all a digital camera really is a shutter mech, a main board, like a computer maybe. And Sony made really great laptops, actually, the Sony Vios. I've owned a few of those. It's like all it is a freaking main board. We got a source for the PCB boards. All we need to do is like bribe some glass company a few $1 billion worth of business to make some lenses for us. We'll make adapters to cohabitate the use of other lenses like suck-in Canon, and we'll bribe Sigma. Money's money. Money talks, and that's exactly so. Sony shooters typically, if someone's new getting into photography, and this really is true, and I'm making a generalization here, but it's generally accurate. It's like, I want to get into photography, they'll get a Sony. Not to say that people don't do that with Fujifilm, but I notice that there's a huge sector of Fujifilm users that are like people that have been using Nikon and Canon for ages. And what do they migrate to? They migrate to a real camera company for mirrorless. They migrate to Fujifilm. Fujifilm now completely owns everybody's butt on medium format. They have now, literally, they are the alpha and the omega of a complete sector of 3 sectors: crop sensor, full frame, and medium format. They are the alpha and the omega of medium format. They are basically the top dog, undeniably so, for crop sensor. Period. They just are. I mean, owning 2 out of 3 sectors isn't so bad. Fujifilm seems to be happy, and logically so they should be, of everybody else killing themselves, Nikon, Canon, and Sony, in full frame. But I notice these trends, you can almost see and predict. It's kind of like when you go to Walmart. You ever been to the website called The People of Walmart? It's like, oh, geez. Whoo! It's like stuff that you don't want to see twice. It's like, oh my God. There is this. I noticed too. Is like everybody's heavily tattooed. Has got a Fujifilm. Seems like it's really weird. Or a Leica, really. The hipsters love. If you're a rich hipster, you got a Leica. If you're a normal hipster, I don't think I'm a hipster. I'm definitely weird. Not in a bad way. Own Fujifilm. I as a person that takes apart cameras and lenses and, own more cameras and lenses than God, I mean, there's just not a chance in hell I would throw my money, because this is my money. I don't, unlike the other photography channels that they rent shit, like, we rented this camera for a week, we're going to talk about it and then send it back. It's like, well, good, you're going to recommend I buy crap that you yourself, way richer than me, and I'm not rich at all, I'm poor as dirt. People got a lot of money. It's like, they want you to buy it, but they themselves are only going to rent it. Doesn't that tell you something? It's like, doesn't anybody else realize that? It's like, this guy says I should buy it, but he himself, even though he's rich, he himself won't buy it. No, that's the reason why I sunk, tons of money into Fujifilm. I'm not gonna invest money into Sony. It's just not gonna happen. I guess by proxy I am, since a lot of stuff have Sony sensors, but that's soon gonna end here in the next two or 3 years, now that Tower Jazz is gearing up big time and Panasonic is coming back hardcore strong into digital sensors. Sony's gonna lose huge market share over the next few years due to Tower Jazz and Panasonic. Also to Samsung. I just find that so interesting. It's like you really kind of can, and you don't want to typecast people, but there is this thing. It's like you can almost tell if what people do. It's like what they're gonna buy. Like that guy's gonna buy a Sony. Yeah, this guy's a photography guy. He's been into photography for a few years. He's got a Canon DSLR, a Nikon DSLR. He's gonna supplement that with a Fujifilm camera because he understands what an ecosystem is. Also, too, people that understand how Sony's corporate ethos works. And their corporate ethos is not good. It's not. Sony's premise is we're going to make it fast, we're going to make it for a few months, then we're going to obsolete it and come out with a new one. You never have to worry about with spare parts for Sony to fix something. So you got a problem with it? It's all right. It's already obsolete with the new models coming out next month. You don't have to worry about it. I think the rarest and more rare than a unicorn or a Yeti is spare parts for broken cameras from Sony. Definitely more rare than unicorns and Yetis. I could imagine if I could ever make a phone call, not that I ever would, to like Sony's parts department for one of their A7R2, A7, all Sony cameras are the same. They're all A7 something. So, Sony is so unimaginative too. Every damn camera from Sony is an A7 something. Calling up Sony's parts department. It's like, hey, you got any spare parts for my... No, if you send it in now. It's really kind of funny. It's not funny, though, actually. But it's one of countless reasons why I wouldn't even dream of ever buying a Sony camera. Listen, Sony has not changed their corporate ethos since the days of the Walkman. They're doing the exact same thing now as far as their corporate mindset that they did for the past decade and the decade before that and the decade before. They're doing the same exact thing. Nothing has changed. Fujifilm really is like Toshiba was back in the day. It's like nobody was ever talking about buying a Toshiba cassette player. But I mean, if you had 5 brain cells and you put a Sony Walkman, this plastic piece of shit, next to the 95% metal, super slim, super sleek, far better featured, far better made Toshiba, and I forget the model number because shit, I mean that's been a long time. It was just you had 5 brain cells, you just like there's no chance, screw that Walkman, hell no. I mean that piece of plastic recycled milk jug piece of junk, but that's what everybody talked about. And there's a reason for that too. Sony actually does their own propaganda because it is beautiful to have a media company. Sony Pictures, Sony used to and still does put their products in all their movies. It's like, wow, so-and-so is using a Sony product. Yeah, it's in a Sony movie. That's pretty brilliant. We're going to use our movies to promote our products, and we're going to use our products to promote our movies. That's a brilliant move. That's some definite corporate kung fu right there. That is definitely right out of Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War. Wait for it. Wait for it. Sony sucks. This video is going to get so many downvotes! Thank you so much for watching.